Welcome, everyone, and welcome to Imagine Museum and our Zoom with artist Rik Allen. I'm Jane Buckman, the Executive Director. I'm excited to be talking with this very accomplished artist who works with glass and who resides north of Seattle and is part of that incredible glass community in the Northwest. We are interviewing Rik today because we are about to launch our Journey of the Imagination tour, of which Rik's artwork is a key feature. The journey we are taking everyone on at Imagine Museum is the exploration of space and the wonders of the creative mind. As they say, space is the final frontier. With Rik Allen's sculpture, that can mean the outer reaches, beyond the stars, or the inner realms of your own mind. His blown glass and metal sculptures evokes explorations of both kinds. Rocket ships, cosmonauts, space helmets, they sport that cheery, chunky gleam of mid-century sci-fi imagery, but with the slightest battered patina of experience. Where might these ships already have traveled? Where will they go next? Inside of some of the ships are tiny telescopes and lone red chairs, for whom past pilots are ones yet to come. The little chair has become more and more of a focus, Allen says. For me, it's a placeholder for your mind. You can put yourself there and imagine yourself being in some other space where you're exploring, looking out. I think they have a beautiful poetry that's very, very simple. We couldn't agree more with Rik relative to the poetry and the imagination of the work. We invite our guests to experience this wonder as they take in one of our newest exhibitions at Imagine Museum. So now, let's have Rik come in and communicate with us directly about his work, his inspirations, and his background. So now, welcome, Rik.
Hello there. Nice to see you again.
That was a great entrance. We're on this coast, we operate on Eastern Standard Time, and I know for you it's Pacific Standard Time, so thank you for waking up early and agreeing to speak to us about your work. And thanks also for that intro. I do think you've set the mood.
No,
So as we move forward, you've sent us a carousel of your work, and some of the pieces are part of the Trish Joy collection shown at Imagine Museum, and others are fantastic works that demonstrate the expanse of your imagination and point of view. So as we move forward, what I would like as we set up the carousel of the work, if you would just talk over the slides and tell us a little bit more about your background, career, creative endeavors that determine the direction of your work. So Natalia, can you start the slides? So as we get this set up to start running those slides, Rik, discuss with us a little bit about your beginnings in glass.
When I was in school, I studied anthropology and became fascinated with ceramic. I was doing a lot of ceramic works at Franklin Pierce College in New Hampshire. And across the park from the ceramic studio was a glass studio, just this little shed, which I would go over and watch friends make glass. That's my first introduction to hot glass. And, you know, play around a little bit, but it wasn't until back to Providence, Rhode Island, working in a bike shop in a ceramic studio part-time. I met Daniel Clayman in a coffee shop. We started talking, and he offered me a job. And so I didn't know yeah, I think he asked me if I, think I could make molds. And I said, sure. I had no idea. Just I was putting my hands basically working with Dan, and being in the middle of Allen School of Design, there, I started working with and eventually Jim Watkins in their class videos. And eventually, Jim had taken me to Pilchuck teaching assistant. And as I was there, I fell in love with it. It was my first time being in the Pacific Northwest. I started the trip out hiking out on the Olympic Peninsula and fell in love with the place and then met the community. And really just, I dug it a lot. I went back, spent a winter in Vermont, and decided the Pacific Northwest was calling. So I ended up out here and started working for more and started working for various artists in Seattle. And Pilchuck, I was doing some of Berthiel Valeen's old work. I decided I was staying. I continued on for many years working with primarily out of Pilchuck in that community. So that was that was the and how I started working and making my own work was my days working for William Morris. Bill was very generous with his studio. We got a lot of time in the studio when he wasn't working, and we were working out of Pilchuck. We had this incredibly beautiful studio to work out of, and community of people to work with. We shared times helping each other out, and it was pretty idyllic, really. Honestly, it was going to openings in Seattle and seeing the rest of the community meant a lot to me. And of course, most importantly, I met Shelley at Pilchuck, and we became a thing. So,
yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. Well, first of all, you're name dropping a lot of glass artists that we have in the collection, from Dan Clayman, and then working with Berthiel Valeen, and then working with William Morris. So those are all pretty wonderful artists that participate in this studio glass arena. And then you mentioned your wife, Shelley. So tell us a little bit about the how that is that you and Shelley work together. Your work is different. Talk about that relationship, because you've been, how many years have you been married? Not to cry, but how many years have you guys been together?
We've been, we're coming up in 23 years now. Okay. Yeah. We met on this both of us were at the very first session in '94. We met, became pretty good friends immediately. And, a few years later, and she joined the team. We started showing at SOFA, and gallery world was especially small, so we were showing in similar galleries and making and encouraging and supporting each other in our work. We've been very lucky, very a great team to share our studio. So we problem solve, or we kind of bounce ideas off of one another. We maintain separate studios. We share a hot shop, but we have a lot. We support each other a lot in a lot of different ways. Many of them I'm probably not conscious of, but yeah, that's the nutshell. I mean, we get inspired by even though our work looks very different, by the very similar thing. Both are very much outdoors people. We love being out in nature and enjoying walks, hikes, kayaking, biking, whatever, out in the woods. And that's when we talk about things and share our life together in this beautiful world with gardens and whatnot. And it all comes to play in our artwork.
Yes, I think that it does. That the images are very different, and the imaginations are very different. Talk a little bit, before we move into process, talk a little bit about why you chose the space objects, the idea of space, and both communicating the exterior and the interior. What about you that made you want to go in this direction?
Um, I think I started. I mean, I've always when I was a kid. I mean, I was 10 years old when the first Star Wars came out, and I was this big Star Trek fan watching the reruns. And I had, my longtime friend Tom from that I grew up with was a big Star Trek fan, and we just shared a love of all that kind of imagery, and it really stuck with me until I was long before I ever considered making artwork or especially rocket ships. And I think I was invited to show some work that had some sort of function, and I really wanted to make. I would play around. I made my nephew a rocket ship just playing around, and I eventually made a ship that was functioning as kind of like a cookie jar, and I just thought it was super fun. The first time I ever put metal foil on the outside was making these kind of cookie jars. And I just loved it. And I was never very precious about glass being glassy all the time.
Yeah.
I just started making, I was falling in love with the surface, honestly, and the forms really were conducive to that. And, just being a kind of, sci-fi nerd from a kid, it really fit. So it just kind of evolved more. And as I got older and started thinking about, consciousness and proprioception is as I feeling where I am in my body and where I am in the world, the chair and the ladders became really compelling to sort of as these images that sort of, these icons that sort of bring you into the piece. They bring imagination to sit down inside or imagine someone sitting inside. I think that often it would be you. Like this piece we're looking at has an escalator behind it, and so you're pulled up from the surface all the way up to the chair, and that puts you inside of the piece, or you can land and experience it. And the ship started becoming kind of metaphorically, you know, metaphors for the body and mind. This is the vessel we all experience life in, and these chairs are sort of our kind of seat of consciousness. And I really, as I developed as an artist and got older, this is a really compelling and thing that I like thinking about. I like thinking about neuroscience and where we are in the planet. So that's where I got to the chair and where I am now. It's still floating around this kind of thing.
So is the neuroscience some of the newer works that you're doing, like the pieces that you blew at Duncan McClellan's gallery down here? Somehow I can imagine brain-like orbs when I see those forms. Is that a piece of that visual communication, of that neurological study?
I think so. I think in neurological, and also they're kind of segueing a little bit to like outer cosmos to inner cosmos of the kind of microscopic neurons, as well as a phytoplankton and objects like that. It's all kind of blending together. It's not really a linear effort to make them one thing or the other, but I do. Since we are both showing our water bugs, and we enjoy the being on the water, and I've like reading and studying about the life out here, especially in the Pacific Northwest, having this rich microbial, marine microbial sort of world that supports this whole system. I became really fascinated in that. So that kind of it kind of took somewhat of an animal form, and even thinking about animal consciousness and how where is that, you know, is there a it in the center of these things? So it's a little of everything. It's a scattered answer to a scattered concept, but yeah, that's when I look. When I do, these things all come out of the drawings that I make. I draw a lot, and when I think of something, these forms come out on paper in my sketchbooks, and then eventually in the glass studio.
Well, so I'm hearing that you were a sci-fi nut, so I'm sure you read books and you watched the TV as we were all growing up, and seeing those shows like Star Trek and Star Wars, etc. And but it's obvious in the work that's in the galleries here and for this that the interior takes on a special importance over the exterior, and which is part of the tour that we're giving, because we want people to really lean in and to see and to imagine. And then I was curious, when I saw you, I think it was over a year ago, it was pre-COVID, when you were blowing those works at Duncan's place, that, I was wondering where that was going. But as I'm learning more, I can see that there is this interior sensibility, which is the same, who you share this exhibition with is Bertil de Leen. It's also kind of the inner passage that he talks about, or he communicates through his work. But we're going to move this forward a little bit, and we're going to talk more about process and your process in creating these fantastical, whimsical, but I think importantly, the serious, thoughtful exploration that you're really encouraging your viewers to take part in. So Natalia, could you run the short video that we have of process? That is a very short introduction, but really let's talk a little bit about how you devise your concepts and moving forward.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that happen in the process of the glass shop, where the process in the glass shop is much process where we're making sculpture, but I use a lot of silver foil that's outside, and that not only is a beautiful exterior that goes to reflect the makes this especially when you have this kind of like the piece behind you, kind of symbolic like form that reflects light in the inside. It creates really nice almost theater. So I use the silver in a way that enough light gets inside and give a nice color to everything, as well as illuminate whatever interior I build. But the process is always starts off with drawing something out. Often the pieces get very technical, so I build work, make the glass work. They sit on a shelf, and I build a metal support of some kind. Like the piece behind you, it has a lot of metal work. I do with my longtime partner, Jeremy Boswell. So we make pieces together there, and they have it takes there's a lot of technical to the interiors, but by just the stuff I see. A good example is really right this past year, not being in the glass shop for over a year. I had a lot of glass. I have, hundreds and hundreds of pieces of glass and metal and stuff that I've collected over the years. I take these forms and I with stuff in the studio to see what works and what the actual objects that can. I will use them to sort of inspire a form. So I'll fabricate something and put it all together and see how it goes. And then I have to take these giant sands and an interior for them. So I squeeze objects inside there, and as well like objects. So it's a combination of like glass working. I don't spend a ton of time in the glass studio of glass anymore, but I spend a considerable amount of time building works in the metal studio and beyond. So, yeah.
I think that, as I sit in this gallery and I'm looking at all the metal works there, and then how you're able to fit the glass into it, to me, so you're saying that you spend more time with the metal and then the glass comes next. Actually, you build the metal and then you put the glass, how do you do that? I mean, it looks so perfect.
And Rik, can you speak closer to the desktop, because sometimes audio coming in and out?
Okay, can you hear me all right? Yeah. So I start with actually the glass first. I blow the glass inside of this thing. The silver will slide to the outside while the glass is actually hot. So I work it from there, and the glass is annealed, and then we apply we build the metal to support that. We start with glass. In the video, there was some, when I was glass, and there's this great images of the metal. The metal, that's a collaboration with Lanny Burton, the local artist. I took the metal form and actually blow into the, and so the form is actually shaped by the metal.
Huh, okay.
So that's like a completely different process, but it was it's been a pleasure working with him. He makes these incredibly beautiful. You really don't want to blow it on their own, but this kind of alchemical thing happens, and they become a whole different is incredibly beautiful. So are you hearing me okay?
So we're having some audio issues here, but I'm looking to, I think there's an audio feedback on Jane's iPad. So Jane, whenever you would like to speak, if you could just maybe wave your hand, I'll do the ask to unmute.
I'm unmuting me now, and then I'll ask a question, and then I'll I'll mute myself. So as you talk about the process, and I find that fascinating, between the metal and the glass and blowing into the glass, and having seen you work, now I actually understand it better with that description. And so we have another video that we'd like to show. And you've mentioned your studio in Skagit County, north of Seattle. And because people are always curious about how artists live and work, we have a short video that allows us to share the beauty of the Northwest with the viewers. So Natalia, I'm going to unmute myself or mute myself and show the video.
So we're going through my primary studio now that has a lot of my works in progress. I'm assembling them now for a show that I will be in at the Shelley and I are showing at the Blue Rain Gallery in Santa Fe. So, and this is a brand new building here that we're using for moving all the metalwork in there and working on some kind of larger scale public sculptures that we're collaborating on. And now we're outside in our outdoors. We have loads and loads of gardens, especially since the pandemic. We've doubled or tripled the size of all of our gardens. We've flowers, vegetables, 2 greenhouses now. So in regard to landscaping and garden life, the pandemic has been at least productive in that way. So we're moving toward, this is the glass studio and this Shelley's studio, my wife Shelley's space where she makes her artwork. We share the glass studio, as I said. And this is her space here. I just kind of popped in on her and said hello. That's Shelley and her beautiful artwork that she's trying to finish up right now for the show that we're showing together, and a little gallery space that we have just to show some of our works. This is a larger kind of metal and glass form called the Salish Sojourner with the interior chair. And just kind of move through some of this space that has a number of various pieces in process, more of Lanny and I's works that we've made together. And Shelley is our glass studio, especially since the pandemic has become a aerial studio. Shelley is an aerialist, and she practices her aerial stuff in this nice, cozy, warm studio that is warmed by our glass furnace, our pride and joy. Our glass furnace in the glass world is quite as cool as ours, I'd have to say. And this all electric fired stainless steel semi spaceship-ish vessel. So that's our glass shop. We make all of our dual hot glass work in there.
I love that. So talk a little bit about how does that location, you did mention that you love the area and that you're an outdoors person, but then how does that actually play in and inspire your work?
Well, I would say that for me, I am an avid kayaker. I spend a lot of time out on the water, and I spend time Shelley and I hike quite a bit. We spend a lot of time outside. So when I get into a flow on whether it's biking or paddling, ideas come to me as I kind of move through the water generally. I keep a notebook with me, and a lot of times things come to me, and then it's a race to get that image down onto paper before I forget it or lose the details. But for me, it's sitting in my studio, and I've tried over the years. I think maybe just my attention span is not great for the writing desk. I've got a very nice writing desk that I always attempt to do all my writing work there, but it ends up being in a little tiny notebook in the middle of nowhere, sketching something out, and I'll flesh stuff out back in the studio. But so being outdoors for me is essential in making. I mean, it almost seems antithetical to making spaceships, but being outdoors is really plugged into the work quite a bit, and I think even more so nowadays. I do. Skagit County, where we live, we're halfway between Vancouver, BC, and Seattle, and it's epically gorgeous. It's where the Cascade Mountains run into the Puget Sound or the Salish Sea, and it's beautiful in all directions. And we're lucky to live in a rural county that we're being informed by that stuff all the time. As you can clearly see in Shelley's work, and it's really important to us. I feel comfortable here, and it's where I want to make work. And since I am very distractible, the country works well for me, for my brain. So yeah.
I also, yes, you're in between Vancouver, BC and Seattle. And Seattle has such an active glass community. And you did your, talking about working for Bill Morris and the number of times that you've worked at Pilchuck. So talk a little bit about how the Seattle community and the community of artists right there, how does that influence your work, or how does that, is that a positive thing to be one of quite a few artists, glass artists that live in the Northwest?
Yeah, the glass scene here is amazing. There are some wonderful people here. Actually, just a recent reminder of how wonderful the glass scene is here is that just at the Traver Gallery, Dave Walters and Dick Weiss had an opening, and we went down. It was the first opening we've been to in a year and a half, and it was wonderful to see the work and to plug in. And we have a great support with all of the artists that live out here. And so I think a lot of us, I feel like when I show my art, I show it to our community of friends, and especially out here, it's a pleasure to show your work to the community. But beyond that, I mean, since there are a lot of glass artists here, a lot of young artists come out here and work for artists, and we've been very fortunate to work with very nice, sweet people who are incredibly talented. I saw that Brandon Callahan was on here, and he's been a wonderful addition to our whole team here. Just the young people that have come and worked with us, even though we're making what we want, they have an influence on our work. So we have these great talented people, which means you can make the things that you want to make, because it all takes a team. There's a big team of people that come together to make work, and it's much more difficult to do it on your own. And so you can problem solve your way through it. You get in the broader, with Pilchuck and the galleries that are out here, and just in general, the community they're very supportive of one another. So you can really, you just get a great, the ideas come, but the love and support you feel all around you. And you can call somebody up or have lunch with somebody and get some ideas on whether it's a technical problem or a aesthetic one. They're there, and it's just lovely to have them. We're very lucky.
I would agree with that. And in fact, I think it's 50 years of Pilchuck that's being celebrated this year. So that's just a testimony. But what I also love what you're saying, Rik, is that you started with Dan Clayman saying, hey, can you work for me? And it's a lovely thing to see how you have played that forward in your own career, also in making that happen and allowing younger artists too to have the same opportunity that you did. I think it seems like it comes full circle. So that's pretty terrific. Before we take on more questions and answers from our audience, I do want to mention to our friends on the Zoom that this Saturday on June 19th, we will be offering our special tour, Journey of the Imagination, and that is at 1 and 3. So if you wanted to jump onto our website and sign up for this tour. I think that you will really enjoy it. During this tour, you'll learn more about Rik's work that we have in the collection. You will be able to experience those interiors of the vessels with the chairs included. They really do encourage your imagination to determine, you know, is that my seat? Where am I going? What am I seeing? What is the destination? Obviously, I have looked at it many times and I have my favorites. I hope you all will too. You will also be able to experience, as you've seen through some of the visuals that we just put on the screen, that through augmented reality, celestial vessels comprise of glass boats that float through space, a glass rocket ship that literally takes off, and an opportunity to take a selfie with a very friendly space alien. Rik, I'm sure you can't wait to do that once that you come and visit us here in St. Petersburg. The tour is free with the cost of admission, so we want you to bring your family and your friends, and I seriously don't think you'll be disappointed in the engagement, not only with the art, but also the opportunity to be engaged through augmented reality. So now I'd like to take some questions from the audience. Are there any questions out there?
One of the questions was in the gallery is all the artwork that we were showing. Somebody asked us if that's everything that we have at the museum. Majority of that, yes, and I guess others are in different places. Right?
We do, we're fortunate to have a sizable collection of Rik's work, and not all of it is displayed in this exhibit. But you will continue seeing more as we move through all of this. But some of those pieces are not part of the collection, and I'm sure they're part of other collections, or maybe part what's going on in this show that you have coming up, Rik. Any other questions, Natalia?
No, I don't see any questions. Does it look like somebody raised the hand, Kurt?
Yes, I think that was Linda. Just a second. Linda, we've got you unmuted. What's your question?
Talk more about the chairs in the different vessels, especially the blue ones that are facing each other.
Oh, the chairs are, like I said before, they are kind of like in the individual chairs, I think of as a seat of consciousness and just that interior dialogue that we have, or like I said, an invite to sit down. The chairs in the museum, I think the only pieces that I've ever made two chairs, and there's two of them in the museum, they are, you know, I thought of them as, you know, in your relationship is much like you're in a in your own head. You when you explore life, when you have a partner, whether it's your wife, husband, or whoever that you spend life with, you kind of go through it together as a single entity in some regard. And so I like that idea, that having the two chairs in there, and so it represents a relationship, and as you going through life together, looking out and seeing the world together, whether it's traveling or just doing dishes together, it is that experience. And so that's what that meant. And the lounge chairs, because that one piece looked so nice and cozy and warm and a lot of light gets in there, I thought lounge chairs were appropriate. The blue chairs are those I made especially for the museum, and you know, I think they are the only blue chairs. And I thought about what the you know, what the how the chairs should be oriented, and both looking out sort of to me reflected a little bit too much of living together separately. So I wanted to have the chairs facing each other, so it's more of a conversation and experiencing a conversation together, and connecting in that way. So you're seeing the two entities in the chairs are engaged in a conversation or a relationship of some kind. So there's some kind of feedback between the two people. So that to me seemed more appropriate than looking out for that particular piece.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So I didn't know that about the blue chairs, actually. So that's something important when we take the tour. I think that we will want to talk about. And the lounge chairs are one of my favorites because that's where I see myself. So have always loved that piece only because I love the ability to think of myself relaxing and looking out at whatever would be out there in space. So are there any other questions?
Yes, there is a question from Nanette. Is there a reason you more often use red chairs?
Yeah. The feedback. I use the red. I started using the red because I think initially, I think the first chair I put in a rocket ship was just silver, and I think just the red looked great against the blue color that I was using at the time. I always use Testra's red in a bit of the red color that I used to use in model making back when I was a kid, and so that I always have Testra's red around, and so I've been using that same color the whole time, and I just think it looks great. A lot of the rockets have kind of a gray tone rather. And I think that it just pops as a nice focal point. It's really, yeah, it looks great to me.
There is another question from Randall Reese. When you and Shelley make work at home, do you work together or do you work separately?
We generally work in the glass studio separately. We make we work with the same teams, but we work separately, and it's just worked out better that way. I think it gives us our own space in that we don't get too in each other's territory a little bit too much. I think that we feel a little bit more free to do it's just the nature of our relationship that it's easier for us to make work separately. But we do, I mean, that's only in the hot glass studio. We do, take turns doing different objects. We do a lot of the metalworking and patina work, and we do discussions about in problem solving, cold working, all that will kind of overlap considerably. But in the glass shop, which is emotions can run a little high in there, it seems like a safe bet to maybe keep in our corners. Though we do collaborate and we do teach together and we do travel together for a number of for workshops and whatnot, and we always have fun bringing together what we do in the glass studio then, and that's it's always fun because Shelley has we have very different sets of skills in the glass studio. So I make what I do, and she is an incredible sculptor and manipulates a lot of detail and color, which I'm not as adept at. So it's always fun to do that. But we, as a policy, we try to keep out of each other's hair a bit. So yeah.
So there's another question. Because of that, we had some issues with the sound. If you could quickly reiterate maybe again about the process of glass and metal and how they come together.
Oh, right. Yeah, what I was saying is there's several different kinds of metal that's being applied. There's the silver that's on the outside of a lot of my work. And the silver is is applied while the glass is still hot. So the glass is made first. The metal is the silver is applied while the glass is hot. It's a very thick Japanese silver foil that's sticks well to the glass and actually turns the interior as a little golden color. So it's a really nice effect of using the silver. And then after the metal, the glass is annealed and cold worked, machined. It is we build out the metal in the metal shop. So we do castings, aluminum castings, or just fabricating steel generally, and then we just fit it to the glass. So we've made over the years Jeremy and I have made setups that can hold onto the glass while we apply the metal and get everything all straight and looking nice.
Thank you. And another question, who built your amazing furnace?
Jeremy and I built our furnace. It was mostly out of salvaged stainless steel that we are regulars at all the metal scrap yards, and so we've acquired a number of. We like to reuse what we can from salvaged materials. So that was a culmination of materials that we put together, and of course having it sort of spaceship-like and having that beautiful door was very important. I worked in a friend who had a studio with a really nice door that really was very satisfying to use, and I've always used these, in the earlier days of my career, glass furnaces had these doors that were stuck with glass, and they were really unpleasant to work with. Holy moly. Yeah, so they were really so anyway, yeah, we put that together, Jeremy and I, and it's been running great ever since.
Are there any other questions out there?
I don't see any more questions, neither on Facebook or here. No.
Okay. So I want to thank everyone who has joined us on this Zoom today with Rik Allen. I apologize for any of the sound interruptions that we had. I think it became more clear once that I became muted. So I'm not quite sure what the noise interference was here, but it seemed to be much better once that I stopped talking. So that's always good. So again, Rik, I just want to thank you for sharing a little bit about your artwork, your studio practice, your relationship with Shelley, with the artists in Seattle, with Pilchuck. What an amazing life that you've had in this studio glass arena, and we're so pleased to have your work here and to be part of this amazing journey of the imagination that we are taking people through. So if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to say, Rik, I hope to see you in Seattle, in Cedar-Woolley, and visit that amazing studio and maybe have something from those gardens. Maybe share a little salad or something from those beautiful gardens that you have.
We would love to have you, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, your staff and everybody. It's an honor to and I love the new space and an honor to be shown with Bert Deal and Martin, and it's really wonderful, really wonderful.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Rik, thanks again. Give our best to Shelley, and we look forward to the next time when we get to see each other face to face.
All right.
So long.